hope you're all well. So, for today's lesson, we'll be diving into the cultural diversity in South Africa. Now, you're probably wondering, what is culture? Culture is a pattern of behavior shared by a society or group of people. It is made up of things like food, language, clothing, tools, music, arts, customs, beliefs, and religion. Every human society has its own culture. Each culture is unique. Culture in South Africa. In South Africa, there is no single culture. We are an ethnically diverse society, a true rainbow nation. Our constitution recognizes all cultures, religions, and languages equally. With 11 official languages and 8 other recognized languages, the rich culture of each of these groups brings its own vibrancy in our diversity. How do we get so many different cultures in one country? The original Aboriginal people living here were the Khoikhoi and Sand. They were joined by two main migrations, that of the Bantu people from the north in Africa and the colonization by the Europeans from the south, all bringing their cultures, skills, arts, and farming methods with them. Khoikhoi and Sand culture in South Africa. The indigenous Khoikhoi and Sand were the early artists of South Africa, as can be seen in the wonderful rock art across the country. The San were extraordinary hunters and trackers, and their tracking skills are still invaluable in the fight against poachers. The Bantu migrants were not all of the same culture. They were the Zulu, Xhosa, Sotho, Ndebele, Shangaan, and Venda, to name a few, each with their own colourful and interesting ways of life. The Zulu culture in South Africa. The Zulu culture was well known for the ferocity of its shield-bearing warriors, for its beadwork and basketry, as well as the beehive grass huts that pepper the KwaZulu-Natal hills. Zulu beliefs are based on the presence of ancestral spirits, which often appear in dreams, and a supreme being who is seldom involved in the affairs of mortals. Magic is used, and many cases of illness or bad luck are considered to be caused by an evil spirit. A diviner will communicate with the spirits or use natural herbs and prayers to get rid of the problem. Xhosa culture in South Africa. The Xhosa culture is well known for complex dress codes that indicate a person's social standing, how senior they are, if they are married or single, if they are the new wife or have had a baby, all shown in the headdress and dress of the wearer. The more elaborate the hat, the more senior the wearer. Only young girls may go around bare-breasted. The pipe smoking of Xhosa women is also well known, and a huge variety of beaded pipes are abound. Traditionalists were described as red because of their practice of debuting red clay on their faces and bodies. Women and men also use cosmetic white clay on their faces. The Xhosas have a strong oral tradition with many stories of ancestral heroes. Ancestor worship rituals, as well as the initiation ceremony for young men, are still practiced, even though many young men die or are mutilated by circumcision. Stick fighting is a common pastime for men whose daytime job is looking after the cattle. Women tend the crops and do much of the other work around the home. Ndebele culture in South Africa. The Ndebele culture is renowned for the skill of the women who decorate their homes in vibrant geometric designs. Skills are passed from mother to daughter, and the shapes used are often inspired by the intricately fashioned beadwork. Ndebele women wear neck rings and traditional blankets of striking colors. Sotho culture in South Africa. The Sotho groups of the South have major cultural differences from the Nguni group, especially with respect to how they organize their villages and their marriages. In the past, initiations into adulthood were elaborate ceremonies lasting a few months, in which girls and boys were taken separately to the bush in the winter. The boys were circumcised. Increasingly, funerals have become the most elaborate life cycle ritual. The South Sotho people of Lesotho are identified with their brightly colored blankets that are often worn instead of coats. These blankets have designs picturing everything from airplanes to crowns to geometric patterns. Traditions of folk art include beadwork, sewing, pottery making, house decoration, and weaving. Functional items such as sleeping mats, baskets, and beer strainers continue to be woven by hand from grass materials. The Shangaan culture in South Africa. The Shangaan people are located mainly in the area of the Kruger Park in Mpumalanga. Their culture is of mixed ancestry, the Zulu and the Tongas. A strict Zulu military system and tribal wear was imposed on Shangaan traditions, but retained the beautiful Tonga homesteads that include round huts with patterned thatch roofs. Their love of music, that features a variety of indigenous stringed, wind, and percussion instruments, was a large part of their culture. The Shangaan people are one of the few ethnic groups in South Africa to practice fishing and include fish in their diet. The most unusual aspect of their diet, however, is their love of the Mupani worm, found in the Mupani forests of the Lowveld. An important figure in traditional Shangaan culture, as with all the other Nguni peoples of southern East Africa, is the Sangoma, a healer and spiritual guide. The Sangoma's medical gourd has become a symbol of the traditional cultural heritage of the Shangaan. The Soappansberg Mountains of its Limpopo province in South Africa is the home of the Venda people, the smallest of the South Africa cultures. The Sangoma or traditional healer is believed to have access to the spirits and seeks guides from their ancestors. Many Venda consult a Sangoma if they become ill. Beliefs in the spirit world influence the Venda art, their wood carvings, pottery, and the decorations of their buildings. Drums are central in the culture and there are legends and symbols linked to them. In rural areas, cattle mean wealth, and the lifestyle revolves around agriculture. Male and female roles are clearly defined, with the men responsible for livestock, ploughing, and the building of huts, whilst women do most of the harvesting as well as all the domestic duties. The culture brought to South Africa by the European settlers. The European settlers were also from different cultures, of which the Dutch were mostly influential. They were joined by the French Huguenots, Brits, and German settlers, each bringing their own flavor to the mix. Dutch became the official European language and gradually transformed into the local form called Afrikaans. Dutch-speaking farmers moved from the Western Cape to the Free State and Gauteng during the Groot Trek in mass to escape British rule in the mid-19th century. The French Huguenot religious refugees came to the Cape around 1688 and brought with them the art of winemaking. They settled in what is now termed the Cape Winelands and transformed the area into a scenic vista of vines. Today, South Africa is recognized as a top wine producer thanks to the Huguenots. Franschhoek is at the heart of the French culture, and this interesting town, steeped in history, celebrates Bastille Day every year. Later, British settlers ushered in the Victorian culture of the day, as can be seen in the buildings in Cape Town, Kimberley, and Johannesburg. Many schools were run on the British public school system, and rugby became a national sport. The British were chiefly responsible for the development of our mining industry. Indian, Chinese, and Cape Malay culture in South Africa. As South Africa developed, more labor was required, and Indian and Chinese indentured laborers were brought in, as were slaves from Madagascar, East Africa, and the East Indies. The Indian laborers were used in the sugar industry in Natal, and today KwaZulu-Natal is still home to the largest Indian population. Durban is where one can best experience this culture. Indian South Africans still preserve their cultural heritage, languages, and religious beliefs, being Christian, Hindu, or Muslim, and speaking English with Indian languages like Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, or Gujarati being spoken frequently as second languages. South Africa has the largest population of the Chinese in Africa, and most of them live in Johannesburg, an economic hub in southern Africa. The slaves that were brought into the Cape have retained much of their Muslim culture, and today are the foundation of the artisan trades in Cape Town. Known as Cape Malays, their brightly coloured homes in the Boerkaap district of Cape Town are eye-catching. Traditional foods such as biryani and bobotie have become South Africa's favourites. The Cape Carnival at New Year is a celebration of this culture. Today, many of the younger generations from all cultures have moved to the city, where they lead a westernized lifestyle and speak either English or Afrikaans in addition to their home language. Many live in the township areas. This is the culture in South Africa. Over time, the townships developed a unique fusion of culture, which has its expression in the music, art, and food. The very interesting art forms, using everything from plastic stripes to bicycle spokes, highlight the creative juices. Local music is also very vibrant. The Rainbow Nation. In South Africa, there is no single heritage or culture, and it is very difficult to define the South African people based on a set of distinct characteristics or identities. The cultures, languages, and ethnic origins of South African people are exceptionally diverse and dynamic. South Africa has been famously referred to as the Rainbow Nation because it is made up of so many diverse cultures and religions. Although it is difficult to define one South African culture in particular, there are certain characteristics that could be considered to be representative of the South African people. South Africans are kind, friendly, and hospitable. South Africans are exceptionally proud of their country, and we are definitely full of spirit.